My name is Ellen Palmer. I am the founder of Ellen Palmer Wellness, and I'm delighted that you made this a priority. You made yourselves a priority here today. With all of the numerous things that are going on in the world, it's important that we really come into self and really move from a place of feeling better and whole and healthy. 2020, some feel like we've talked about this too much, and other folks have felt like maybe we haven't talked about this enough, but there's been a lot of change and loss in 2020. And with that brings a lot of emotion, from fear to grief, and for many, a lot of frustration, just having to do things differently and be about the world differently. So some folks have shared that they're really feeling exhausted, and that they've exhausted their supply of positivity and willpower and discipline and motivation to accomplish the things they set out to earlier this year. And other folks are sharing that they feel like their life has been on hold, and that it's been really hard to move on because they have just left so much behind, or perceived have left so much behind, that they don't feel like they have permission to move forward and create in a new space, or that it's not fair or undeserved. And so I get it. I was feeling that way too. Living our ideal is a choice that we make every single solitary day. And I know that's really hard to do or even hard to consider doing when things feel chaotic or unsettled. I live this every day as well. So I want you to know, I don't ever ask anyone to do anything that I haven't already done, or that I'm not willing to do myself. So all of this is me being in this with you. You know, the phrase this year is "in it together." Truly, it is in this together, including me. So I'm not sitting over here in my glass house, having everything figured out perfectly. I've had to navigate this myself this year. And I'm a firm believer, as many of you already know, that everything happens to move us forward, as you're going to hear. So in these times, it's all too easy to give up and commit to living that status quo. It's even easier to fall back into old habits, like eating junk food, or drinking too much, or shopping too much, or giving up exercise, or not caring how we look or what we wear. And we give up on what we want to accomplish. But what if now is actually the best, most perfect time to redefine ourselves, to choose the ideal? What if there was better health for us? What if there were more deeply connected relationships? What if there was a more satisfying career, or a satisfying career within the career that you already have? Like, what if that were here for you now? Instead of committing to the uncertainty and putting everything on hold, your life and everything else, or even continuing in the default of those habits that don't serve the life you want to live, and the life that you don't love, I want to help you reimagine this year. I want to help you reimagine what's possible for yourself. I really want you to expand into a new way of thinking and feeling and being, if that's what you're wanting. So if it's not for you, just hang out with me here. But if it is, I'm delighted to have you. I believe that every single solitary day is an absolute gift, and every year is an absolute blessing. So this one has served up some really, really great opportunities to shake us out of our old skin, and to help us step beyond that status quo that I mentioned, and to really up-level our sense of empowerment. And I'm really coming from a place of authenticity. This year has been shaken up pretty significantly for me too. And just like everyone else, it's the day-to-day of our lives, but it's also the pandemic and everything else that's going on. And I've lived that too. So again, I share in this with you. So maybe we can learn from each other today. My intention is to share with you 3 simple and impactful tips to help you live beyond your perceived limits, and really get out of that survival mindset and into living a much more full and loving life now, today. Not, someday in the future. We're not going to play the someday game. We're going to play today's a gift. It's part of a year that's also a gift, and expand you into a new way of being. There are even more expanded beliefs about what you're capable of, and I hope that you can land into some of that here today. So I'll keep it simple, and then we will, I'll open it up for a question and answer at the end so that you can have your particular circumstance broken down a little bit. And again, I'll share what I love about these intimate webinars is that we have a chance to break people through and break people free of some of their limiting beliefs so they can live beyond how they currently are feeling stuck. So I invite you to share. We'll keep it sacred and intimate, and we'll keep you moving forward. So I want to share some foundational thoughts first, and then we'll get into the tip sharing. But we all have perceived limits of what we deserve and what we're capable of having and experiencing in this world. It starts with the messaging and the experiences that we have in the environment that we grow up in as kids. So it all begins there. And I'm not parent bashing, I'm not environment bashing. It's a fact. We are experiencing things before we're born. And when we are born, we come into social conditioning, and our environment plays a role in who we are. And some of that can start to plant a seed for taking us from this really expansive being that's come into the world into a smaller version of ourselves. It's not necessarily true, and some of that's okay, but if we get older and we start to feel constricted by that, there's a lot of opportunity in that. So again, it really starts with this messaging and environment that we experience when we're kids, and it evolves through the course of time as we experience the world. It's messaging from society, it's messaging from the relationships we have, the careers we have, the people we encounter, the economies that we're in, our geography. All of this comes into play. And even the most successful people, and I can't stress this enough, even the most successful people, and the ones that look like they have it all figured out, also deal with limiting beliefs about themselves, what they're capable of and what they deserve. And it's all okay. We don't have to let any of this make us feel like we're a victim of all of this conditioning. It's actually a gift. All of the messaging or all of the ways we feel limited are actually here to serve us. When we become conscious of them, what happens is we're not conscious of them, and we just show up in default behavior every day, and it just is the narrative that's ruling our world. It's helping us create either what we have or what we don't have. So the little things that I've mentioned, the everyday job and relationships and health, are the everyday limiting beliefs that we can try on over time, and they can start to armor up on us. But then we have things like what we're experiencing now, which is a lot. So oddly, whatever we have experienced, we take this on as the truth, and it starts to create the narrative or the playbook for our lives. So most of the time we are not even conscious of this again. So I'll come back to just the foundational thought, which is we all have perceived limits. It's completely and totally fine. The second point is that everything happens to help us notice these perceived limits, really feel the discomfort of that, because that's what's going to move us off the mark. And it will help us move closer to self-love and fulfillment and connection and joy and success. So the small everyday things like traffic and disagreements and changing bank accounts and logistics of balancing work and life, those and global pandemics and financial crises and racial tension and relationship issues, it's all here to move us beyond our limiting belief. I argue that we pay attention to things that come through our body, our bank account, our relationships, and our jobs. So if you want to identify where some of these limiting beliefs live, you're probably going to notice them in tension or stress or discomfort in any one of those areas. But I digress. I'll get to that in just a second. So the third foundational thought that I want to share with you is that we get good at what we practice. And if you spent any time with me, you know this. And I talk about golf versus tennis. If you really, really want to be good at golf and you're only playing tennis, you're probably going to get really good at tennis, but you're not going to get good at golf. So I'm keeping it simple. We get good at what we practice. So if you're practicing those limiting beliefs that you've acquired over time, just through osmosis of living your everyday, you're going to get really, really good at limiting and experiencing the world in a limited way. So you're that powerful, and I just want to give you that as a gift. We are all really, really powerful, and we have the opportunity to expand beyond these limits. So I'm going to say it one more time. We get good at what we practice. And so if you're practicing limiting belief and limiting belief about what you deserve, then that is what you will be experiencing in the world. There's no judgment, there's no harm, there's no foul, there's no need to be a victim. It's just important that we understand this very basic concept. So let me get into the first tip. I'm going to share 3. The first tip to living beyond your limits, perceived that you've acquired over time, is to identify what you've been telling yourself or what you've been told throughout the course of your life. So know what you're telling yourself every day, because it's either limiting what you do or don't have, or it's expanding what you do and have. So are you telling yourself that you can or can't have something that you want? Are you telling yourself that you can or can't feel the way that you want to feel? Are you telling yourself that you can or can't experience what you want? Are you telling yourself that you can or can't be successful in one or many areas of your life and way of being? That could be with regard to relationships, that could be financially, that could be at work, at home, in your community. So once you're aware of these limiting thoughts, and you can write them down, like notice what's happening in the day. Notice how you're starting your day. Notice the narrative that's going on in your mind. Notice when you're thinking can and can't, and write it down. Because once you notice these limited thoughts, you can do one tiny thing to shift it if it's out of alignment with how you want to be. So I'll say that again. The objective is not to create sweeping change that's unsustainable. It's get a little bit more intimate with what you're telling yourself and what you're being told every day by understanding can and can't. When you have that consciousness, you can start shifting one tiny little thing, one tiny bit at a time. So tip number 1 is to get clear. A super simple example. I love white pants. I love white jeans. I think they're super comfortable. I love them. They match everything. It's so easy because most things match with white. And I had the same limiting beliefs that a lot of women had, from when we were little, is that you can't wear them past Labor Day in September. And I'm picking something super simple because we have a lot of these super simple things going on that we're not conscious of. And I really wanted to wear my white jeans longer than September, whenever Labor Day is every year. And so I'm a grown woman. I'm not limited by what other people tell me I can and can't do. I can choose to wear what I want to wear. And you can't see this, but I'm wearing my white jeans today. So again, I'm keeping it simple, and yes, I'm kind of making a joke out of it, but I want you to understand it could be something that simple in your day that you've always been told, either by society or your family member or yourself, you've picked it up along the way, that you can't have. If you want to wear white jeans, wear white jeans. Or if you're a gentleman and you want to wear white jeans, please do, white slacks, whatever the case may be. So we also have these beliefs of what we can and can't have monetarily. I work with a lot of business professionals, CEOs and entrepreneurs, and they have their financial goals. And I always ask them, like, what if it's bigger than that? I understand for financial planning, you really want to look at that, but what if it could be more? What if we're limiting ourselves to what we think we deserve? Maybe there's a different model out there. So just notice where you might be having this. I was talking with someone the other day who used to travel a lot and loved moving about the world pretty freely and enjoying some really cool experiences. And she was just feeling quite a bit of loss around being in different areas and experiencing different cultures and getting a change of scenery. And so we drummed up this plan. She found an Airbnb 2 towns away, like it was even within the same state that she's in. She hadn't been spending any money on vacations. And so she used a little bit of the budget and she found an Airbnb and she took her family and they worked and they did school from this location again, which was less than 30 miles from where she lived. And they had the most incredible time and they did things that they wouldn't normally do while they were living their real life. So that was a little bit of a getaway and a change, but we've been told like it's not safe or it's not, this just isn't the year where we're doing those types of things. And I understand you don't even have to spend a lot of money, but if you want to change the scenery, allow yourself to think beyond the limited belief. So come back to just identifying what you're thinking each day in terms of what you can and can't have. So that's that awareness piece. The second tip is to really get centered. In order to live beyond any perceived limits that you might have about this particular year or about yourself in general, is to come into self. We're really, really distracted and we have so much more opportunity to tap into our power. So every single morning, before every single meeting, before important conversations, before you do anything, take the time to come into self and choose how you want to feel or what you'd like the outcome of that experience to be. So, perfect example. Actually, I'll tell you the example in a second. Otherwise, what we're doing is we're just stepping into our life and we are reacting to everything. We're reacting to life. So you're living defensively and you will never expand or grow or feel like you're in control of your life because you will always be at the mercy of something else. So your joy, your health, your success will be dictated by other people, the economy, the state of the world, other people, other experiences. And it's okay if that makes you happy. Again, there's no judgment around any of this. It's just if it is unsettling to you or it's disruptive or it causes you to feel like you're not living the life that you want to have this year or any year, it's just the perfect opportunity to take back control of your life. So what does that look like? You know, how do we get centered? And there's so much more that I teach, but for the purposes of this webinar, I'm keeping it simple. You can just do a very, very simple breathing technique to get centered. I actually did it before I jumped on to this webinar because I had a meeting that went longer and I wasn't able to get to my next destination, which was my office, to do this webinar. So I just decided to stay here in this building where my meeting was and to do a little bit of a clearing and a centering so that I could be present for you all and really show up the way that I wanted to show up and feel the way that I wanted to feel, which is grounded, which is centered, and which is joyful. So regardless of what's gone on in terms of chaos and meeting time frames and anything else, I choose joy. And so what I did is I did a really quick breathing exercise, and you can do this too. So I'll describe it, and if we have time at the end, I'll take you through it. But you can use this anytime. Again, before you start a conversation, when you get up in the morning, if you do a meditation in your meditation, after you've landed at, say you're going to a meeting somewhere else, or if you are going to be traveling, whatever the case may be, I invite you to come into a place of centeredness, which is an ability and an opportunity to live the experience you want. And so what I do is I do a breathing exercise where I breathe into my heart. I literally feel the breath coming into my heart space. I feel an opening of my heart, and I allow a gentle breeze to flow through and carry with it anything that I don't need in that present moment. I let any of the past few moments go, and I might even say something like, let it go. So I'll do a round of 3. So I'll breathe deeply into my heart. I'll allow that area to expand, and I'll picture and sometimes even feel a soft, gentle breeze flowing through that area, carrying with it anything that I don't need in that moment. And so I do that for 3 times. And some folks like to breathe into their mind space where all of their thoughts are, and they may be feeling a little bit of chaos there. Breathe in and feel the relief of the deep breath coming into that space. Feel that expansion and allow that soft, gentle breeze to carry away with it. It's a bit of a surrender for all of the folks that I work with, which are, you know, really capable, driven, successful folks, whether they're teenagers or 30 somethings or 50 somethings. We're in our heads a lot. And when we're in our head, we're not in our heart. So we're trying to solve, we're really, really trying to react and respond. And my invitation is to breathe some air, some lightness, some expansion into your mind or into your heart or both, and allow the past moments to be swept free and carry with it anything that you don't need that's preventing you from being centered. So that's step number 2, is to get centered. Again, you can do it before any conversation, before any meeting, before you eat a meal, before you exercise, before you travel. And then the third tip that allows you, and I argue probably the most important, I'm coming into this year, that allows you to live beyond those perceived limits that you've accumulated over the course of time, is to play more. It's really to set up your life to have more playtime. And for those of us that are really committed and driven, and we love to cross things off our list, maybe that's you too. Maybe you like to succeed, maybe you're a little bit competitive, maybe it's just really hard to have fun until the work is done. This is especially for us. And we must have some downtime in order to experience ourselves differently in the world. Working all of the time, even when you love what you do, like I love everything that I get to do. I feel so grateful for the ways that I get to be in the world and the ways I get to show up and the things that I get to help people with. It is really all so fun. However, if I'm only ever doing that, I'm really limiting my opportunity to develop those other parts of who I am. So I'm not only going to burn out, which has happened to me over the course of time, it really limits my creativity, which doesn't serve anybody. It isn't, if we're not being creative, we're not expanding. So we actually get new ideas, we get new perspectives, we get new energies, we move out old thought when we have a chance to have some downtime, and especially when we play. Problems work themselves out sometimes. So we get out of our head, we get out of that loop of trying to solve and think we have to have the answers, and we go out and play, and suddenly something that was an issue kind of worked itself out while we were out doing that thing. So we get some new ideas, we get new perspectives, problems solve themselves, and we feel more freedom. So lots of folks are working really hard and a lot to create a sense of freedom. Maybe they're their own boss, or maybe they're trying to create some financial freedom, yet they are far from liberated. They are tied to their calendar, they're tied to their schedule, they're tied to just one more phone call, they're tied to one more proposal review, or one more client. And so I'm not saying any of that's bad. I enjoy that too. And with a capital A-N-D, we get to come into a true sense of freedom when we give ourselves a break and we allow ourselves to expand and grow, so that when we do show up for other people, we are the expanded version of ourselves. And there's actually more for people to access. There's more solutions, there's more ease, there's more peace. There's a better model for freedom for the folks that we're trying to serve. And so again, whether I'm working with an entrepreneur or a college student or someone on the C-suite, it is, it's really important that we get to experience all of ourselves and develop all of ourselves, not just the work side of who we are. Our hearts are lighter when we have more joy to share in the world, which expands everybody. So it's an old limiting belief that you will have more to share if you just work harder. It doesn't work. And I'm proof positive that that does not work. Working too much can actually fuel a subconscious belief that we're only here to serve others and not receive. And that isn't healthy for anybody. So every relationship, professional or personal, is a give and a take. And if you're only giving, you're only allowing yourself to give and you're not allowing yourself to receive, relationships erode. There isn't enough energy to anchor into of an exchange. And I've experienced that personally. I've experienced that professionally. I've helped people navigate it. I have more to give folks when I am out doing the other things that I also enjoy, like running or paddleboarding or biking or being with my friends or being silly or sitting around a fire pit or listening to music or journaling or reading. All of those things might seem small, but they get us out of our head and they give us an opportunity to really experience ourselves and develop those other aspects of who we are. So make time to play. Your work will improve, your relationships will improve, everything will improve. So 3 simple solutions. So know what you're telling yourself every day. Just understand, start with this consciousness or this mindfulness and awareness around what the narrative is. It's either the narrative in your head or it's the narrative of what you're hearing in society or your partnership or from your employees. Start there. Another strategy is get centered. Again, all day, every day is your opportunity to get centered. There are days when I get centered before every single phone call. I most certainly do it every morning. I do it every day around noon, and I do it again at the end of the day. But lots of times I'm sprinkling that in throughout. It just makes every experience so much more engaged, and it makes it richer. And you can do that simply by using that breathing exercise that I shared a little while ago. And then last and probably most important is to create space for playing so that you have opportunities to grow and develop, and you have an opportunity to receive, so people feel like they're in relationship with you, whether that's your clients or your community or your family or your partner. People want to feel connected. And if you're only giving and you're not receiving, you're leaving off a really important part of that. So these are just a few tips for living beyond your perceived limits. My Ideal Life programs really are where we do a much deeper dive on those. I provide a safe and supportive environment for helping people create their ideal health, their ideal relationships, more connection, more success, bigger bank accounts, a sense of true liberation and freedom. And I literally have one spot open in the Ideal Life Foundations class, which starts on October 14th. And I have a few spots left in my Ideal Alignment group for graduates of the Ideal Life or Ideal Year programs. And so if you're interested in those, where we do a much deeper dive, please visit the website, which is ellenpalmerwellness.com, and you can click on the Ideal Life Method tab and you'll see both of those opportunities there. But I also want to offer to you too, I always offer a wellness consultation. It's a holistic 365 or 360 degree view of your life. And lots of times just having that sacred space to have someone listen to you can help break you free from some of the limits that you felt. But if it is something that is really transformative for you, and I have room in my one-on-one coaching, I would offer you a spot in that. So I have a couple more spots available for the rest of 2020, leading into 2021 for individual one-on-one work together. And that always begins with a wellness consultation. So you can head to my website and click on that link, and it will give you the opportunity to book some time on my calendar. I'm seeing here, folks, that some of you are needing to sign off, and that's fine. I wanted to share with you. I wanted it to be easy, and now I want to open it up. If anyone has any questions for working through some of the things that you might be going through where you have felt limited and it feels impossible to break free from that. And again, this gives folks an opportunity to hear how they might be stuck in their lives too. So if there's anyone that's wanting to share, please unmute yourself so I can hear you. And I'm happy to work through a scenario for you, but it probably will help other folks as well. And again, if anyone is trying to, I can't hear you because you're muted. And if you aren't interested in that level of support right now, that's absolutely fine. Also, I'm glad to have shared this time in this space with you. I hope that it's been helpful. My intention was to keep it to a half an hour, and I have. Karen, I see that you just unmuted. Would you like to share something?
No, no, I just wanted to make sure that I was unmuted at the end to say thank you. It's very interesting and helpful.
I'm glad. I appreciate you and everyone else joining us. If you're watching the recording of this, the same offer holds true for you. I always offer a consultation. I don't know what will still be available for those programs that I listed. Again, there's just one more available for the Ideal Life Foundations class. It's a 5-week program. It's curated content. It's my life's work. It's been tweaked and revised every year since 2009. And this year there was a whole bunch of learning that I'm integrating into it. It's small group. There's 4 other folks and me. There's structure to the program. It's a price point that is advantageous, and they also offer a way to break that into monthly payments if that helps folks. And then I have 2 more spots as of right now for the Ideal Life, Ideal Alignment group for graduates of those programs, which starts on Monday. So that starts October 5th. The other program starts on October 14th. Thank you so much for showing up here. Thank you for making yourself a priority. I hope this is helpful. They're simple strategies, but if we practice the simple things consistently, it will lead to more and more expansion, and more opportunities will reveal themselves to you. So I appreciate you, and I hope you are out in the world living your ideal. And if not, and I can be supportive, I'll look forward to talking with you at some point in the future. Thanks, everybody. Be well.